Now I move on to inseparable prepositions on definite nouns. We already indicated back in section 5.6 that when an inseparable preposition is prefixed to a word that has an article, the hey disappears and the preposition takes the vowel that was under the article. And the same thing will happen with these more complicated articles that we've been looking at. So if you have the word city, and which is ear, to a city would be la ear. But if you make the word city definite, you end up with ha ear, the city. But when you add article hey to the city, it will basically supplant the hay. Again, in my imagination, it squashes the hay, smashes it down to the very top layer of the kamats underneath there, and sits on it. But whether you want to think of it that way, basically the hay disappears and the lamed takes the vowel. And so that would be to the city. And the only difference is if you have a shavah here, that would be to a city. If you have a kamats, that would be the kamats of the hay. The hay tried to double the I and couldn't, and so it compensatory lengthened to a kamats, and the kamats is still there after you add preposition la. Same thing with the word sword, which is cherev. If you want to say like a sword, it would be kacherev. But if you want to say the sword, it would be ha-cherev with the article hey. And here you virtual double. You can't double the hey, but it can't take a doubling. It can't take a doubling, but it doesn't compensatory lengthen either. So you pretend that there's a dog h there and leave the patah alone. But then when you add the preposition ka, as or like, it will supplant the hey. And again, the only indication that it is like the sword is the vowel, the patah. If you still have a shavah, it would be like a sword. If you have a patah, it would be like the sword. And again, we trust for the most part that the Masoretes have interpreted contextually the correct vowels to put there. In original Hebrew, none of those vowels would have been there. And it would be subject to the reader to interpret whether it's like a sword or like the sword. But in the Masoretic script, as they have vocalized it, they tell you which one they think is correct. A little bit about the vocabulary. You have adamah, the word for ground or earth. This appears in Genesis 2:7, where there's a little bit of a paronomasia or wordplay that God formed Adam, from the dust of the Adamah. Adam and Adamah being a bit of a word play. And then you have the plural of man is anashim. So the word for man is ish. The plural is anashim, that has a noon that you wouldn't expect to show up, but it does show up. And he just gives you that as a vocabulary item to learn separately. Then you have the word, the plural for the word house. House is bayit, but the plural for the word house is batim. Again, you wouldn't be able to predict from the dictionary form bayit, here seen in the dictionary in the back of Roth. The dictionary form is bayit, and you would not have been able to guess that the plural would be batim, but it is. And so, again, since it's irregular, he just gives you that as a vocabulary item separately. And then the other words, gan, garden, derek, road or way. And it's a little bit of an odd word. It seems to have gender identity issues. Sometimes it's treated as a masculine noun. Sometimes it's treated as a feminine noun. And it can't make up its mind whether whether it's masculine or feminine. And then you have the word yeled, child. And how you memorize this is up to you, but I always thought of it as a little boy yelling, yeled, child. The plural of woman, woman is isha, but the plural of the word woman is nashim. And because it's irregular, he gave it to you as just a separate vocabulary item. The word for city is ir. It happens to be feminine. It doesn't look feminine, doesn't have a feminine ending, but it happens to be feminine. The plural form is arim. And then you have ra'av, hunger or famine. And then you have sadeh, field or country. So it could be a field that they cultivate, but it could also be the field of Edom or the field of Moab, meaning the country of Moab. It's used in both senses. So here it asks you to transliterate into English, and here you're going to have to pay attention to quiescent letters, like here you have the aleph. You may write the aleph, but it will not actually show up in sound if it's quiescent, as here, Lelohim. Ross earlier transliterated that, and here you can see Lelohim, where it actually shows, if you can see it there, the aleph as a symbol, but it really doesn't show up as a sound. So do some transliteration in section A, and then you'll practice doing either virtual doubling or compensatory lengthening, or looking for some of those irregular forms with words like ish, where you have ha-ish, the man, in which case you start off with ish, you add the hey, you try to double the aleph, can't double the aleph, you compensatory lengthen from a patah to a kamatz. And on down the list, most of these are either have compensatory lengthening or virtual doubling or one of those irregulars that he just gave you a list of, or in some cases it has like the mountain where the vowel changes under the article, heharim instead of haharim, and so on and so forth. And then he asks you to read aloud and translate into English. Again, it's always good to read things around. So, Yashav ha'am ba'aretz. And Yashav is here it dwelt, or dwelled. And ha'am happens to be the subject. So that's the people dwelled. And then ba is in. The kamatz under the bet indicates the article, the. And then aretz is the form with the article of eretz, which is land. The people dwelled in the land. And anyway, you should practice reading those aloud and do the translation of all of those. And that gets us through lesson 6. Again, make sure that if you have questions as you go through the homework or read through the textbook, make sure that you post those on forums, and either another student or I will try to answer those for you. And we'll see you next time. Lahit wrote.